A New Jersey man received thousands of phone calls after his sons put up a billboard that read, "Wish my dad a happy birthday," with his phone number. A few of the calls actually wished him a happy birthday. The rest were just people phone banking for Bernie Sanders. Look at Tamara. She wrote it, all right? Don't blame me.
You delivered it.
Starting in 2021, Americans will have to register online before traveling to Europe. World travelers. The Registry of American Tourists will help European countries make sure they have a sufficient supply of butter.
Oh. Actresses Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman are among those charged in the college admissions bribery scandal. Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman's kids are so embarrassed. Then the news of the bribery scandal broke.
Classic joke.
Take that, Lori Loughlin.
The IRS is warning that a con artist may have already filed your taxes for you. Great, then the con artist can fold my laundry and pick up the kids from ballet class.
Advisors for Beto O'Rourke have also confirmed that he will be taking an extended tour of Iowa next week. Don't expect any announcements. He just needs to add a couple extra days because of how often he'll have to have this conversation. No, it's Beto. B-E-T-O, not beta. Beto.
I like the act out.
Take that, Iowa.
Queen Elizabeth made her very first Instagram post, and Cardi B is already feuding with her.
Alex Trebek released a heartfelt statement about fighting stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He says he's going to whip cancer like it's a Jeopardy contestant who can't name the 4th Persian king of the Achaemenid Empire. And finally, the internet turns 30 today, meaning that earlier today, President Trump broke up with the internet. The Trump Report starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now,
Let the buzz.
Welcome to the Trump Report. I'm Christian Apple, joined as always by Chelsea Apple, Tamara Apple, and of course, way on the end, Scott Apple. Thank you, Chelsea. It is delightful to have you back.
Thank you.
We have missed you.
I can tell because you've already forgotten my name, but you've also forgotten Tamara and Scott's name, and they haven't been.
We are family. We are all
And
part of the Apple
mispronounced
family.
You meant to do that so that you would use fewer words.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's more about the economy words. We've had so much Bernie talk while you're gone. Unfortunately, we don't have any time for that today. But there is a lot to talk about. The Trump budget is out, and if you're like me, you pre-ordered it, but you're waiting for the Washington Post, Amazon to deliver it to you. So when I get it, I'll actually get to read through it. But it's asked for an additional $8.6 billion for funding the wall. And honestly, at this point, I don't know. I mean, what's $8.6 billion between friends, right, Tamara? I mean, if I needed $8.6 billion,
Sure.
For my investments in Las Vegas that have gone poorly, let's just say, I feel like I wouldn't feel uncomfortable asking you for it.
Well, I'm glad I give off that vibe. I'm glad.
Should we be surprised that the wall is more expensive than we were told it was going to be? Like Netflix?
The price just keeps jumping up, huh? What was it, $5 million? What was it before?
I think it was $4.80 at first.
At first.
It was whatever the equivalent in pesos
It
was.
was going to be made in popsicles originally, I believe, when he was campaigning.
Yeah, and they were Mexican popsicles that China was going to pay for. But I don't know. I mean, obviously, we shouldn't be surprised. How do you think, if you were an elected official, Tamara, how would you respond to this? Like, wait, now he wants more money?
I would be wondering what is the purpose of, we've been saying for the past few weeks whenever we talk about the wall that what he's going to end up doing is changing the phraseology so that he's going to say, see how I got the wall, and referring to the pieces of the wall that already exist and parts that are being repaired, and he will just phrase it to make it seem like he is responsible for those things that are already are there. But I don't understand how it behooves him to be asking for more money.
Do you think he could spell behooves if he was given like 4 hours?
I don't think I can spell behooves.
All right. Well, that's good. Chelsea?
Yeah.
Do you think that $8.6 billion, pardon me, that's
Million?
a big
Sure,
mistake.
bargain.
Do you think $8.6 billion is what it will take to finally make us safe?
I'm insulted for that question. I guess way to warm me back up. And
it's a lot of money.
My return.
Think about what you can buy with $8.6 billion.
Yeah, well, like I teach to my financially fit students, I teach them first you have to manage a little bit of money and then be really good with that. So if, for example, we gave Trump $8.6 million and he proved that he could do something really good with that small amount, then it's like, okay, then we give him more because he can be entrusted to spend that money wisely. But to just give $8.6 billion for something that is already sounds not worth it, I guess, just the basic
just
way
not
of
worth the
saying
investment.
Just not worth. Right, and actually, I think I like the term that you used, investment, because when the government spends, we need to look at it like an investment, and not only are we getting monetary return for it, but are we getting a return for it that makes that investment worth it, of both our money and energy and all of that it takes to build something like this for what we're trying to get it to do. I wish that safety was as simple as a wall, but I don't think that anybody of, let's see, how do I say this, of basic intelligence can convince me that just a wall will make us safe and will cure the ills that they've been saying it will.
Look, you don't have to be intelligent to be fiscally responsible. I mean, it wouldn't actually. I don't think that's the criteria as being intelligent. Just the idea of like, what are you spending your money on? Exactly. Like, as much as as much as I want to buy a 1977 Millennium Falcon still in the box, I know that I should send my kids to college. I know that that's a better use of my money.
Yeah, I think that we've gotten a little bit caught up in just the number. And the number is so big that our minds can't really grasp it. But in order to say whether 8.6 million or 8.6 billion is a good deal, we'd have to know all of the money, what's the pool of money that we have to be dealing with, and what else do we have to pay for, just the same way that we have to do in our personal finances. There is no way to tell if that $100 pair of shoes is a good idea for you until we know what's your entire budget, what other obligations do you have, and how high of a priority are those shoes, and how useful will they be, how much usage will you get out of them, and yada yada. So, but to just look at the one number by itself, 8.6 billion, is the way that too many of us go shopping, and it's irresponsible, and that's why we individually have the level of debt that we do, and as a country have the level of debt that we do.
My understanding of finances is that it's important to look for savings, collect. You can cut out coupons, you can find deals online. Do you think that there could be savings to be had on the wall? Could there be, materials that you might be able to save, I don't know, $1 million?
Well, I have been a part of a project that builds schools out of old soda bottles that have been stuffed with trash, and it reduces the cost of classrooms by half.
That's a real thing?
It is a real thing.
Where are these schools built?
Most of them are in Guatemala.
Okay.
I will tell you that they are structurally sound. There's engineers involved. There's also cement involved, and it's a whole thing. I've done this 6 times. I need to get ready for trip number 7. But if you're at all interested in it, check out the organization Hug It Forward, and they take people so you can go a week at a time to help build these schools. But okay, sure, there are some parts where I do believe that we need a physical barrier, and something like, maybe recycling the plastic that we're not really recycling that we should be. Sure, cool. Or there was some idea that I read about that the wall could be solar panels. That could be interesting. But I don't think that a concrete barrier that by itself offers nothing other than a barrier, and which is too expensive for what it's supposed to provide, is worth it.
Well, Chelsea, thank God for the world's soda consumption. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to build those schools. So you're welcome. Scott Moore, would you... all in all, we're just another brick in the wall. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Moving on.
Yeah, that's it. Moving on. Well, there is a lot more to talk about in the budget, but obviously the price tag, we've kind of aired thoughts here. What do you think this does for the base of President Trump, who this wall, our friend Storage Resident in the chat right now, that seems to be maybe it's not the only important issue to him, but it is the most important issue to him. When it's these huge funds and it's a government that wastes so much money, do you think to the base it's like, okay, whatever it takes, just another $8.6 billion, that might as well be another $8.60?
Yeah, no, exactly, because going back to Chelsea's point, people don't really understand that size of money, and especially people that aren't keeping track of their own finances in the best way have no concept of what $8.6 billion is.
And so sorry to interrupt, but I really feel like I have to. When we make purchases, even large purchases like cars, too many of us are not that good at thinking about what are the ongoing costs, the maintenance, the fixing, the insurance, because you got this really expensive car. So we can't just think of this as a one-time purchase, $8.6 billion. We already know that that's not what it's going to be.
Right.
So we're going to have to get the wall detailed. And
Exactly. You have to have maintenance on the
tinted
wall.
windows.
Because it will eventually have issues, and then you're paying for all the maintenance and the ongoing, keeping it going for years at a time. But let's also be honest, this is just a blueprint. This will never go anywhere, as we know that, which Trump is learning the hard way with the national emergency, that there's lawsuits and everything there, that Congress is responsible for the money. So this is a blueprint of, this is the priorities that he'd like to do, but it's not going to be anything to look like this when they actually do pass a budget in the fall. It's going to be completely different.
A little bit of a mic drop from Scott Brown in the chat. $8.6 billion could permanently end the homeless veteran crisis or any number of ills that we talk about, but only during campaign season. Thank you for sharing that, R. Scott Brown.
Good point.
Not
absolutely.
Scott Brown, the former senator. I just haven't mentioned that in a while. So the actual budget itself comes in at a very responsible $4.7 trillion. I can't imagine there's anything that could be trimmed away from that, considering all the things that President Trump has felt the need to cut some spending on. Education department faces a 10% funding cut, a cut in science. I mean, who needs science anyway? Tamara, you have to back me up on this. Science.
If I wasn't forced to sit this close to you, I wouldn't be right now.
That's why you sit here. I mean, I don't know. What has science ever done for us? Name me one thing.
Science schmience.
Thank you.
I don't
I'm
care
so
about
glad
that.
you said it.
What
Yeah.
I am concerned about is I read today that it could dissolve the college loan forgiveness program that Obama set up, which personally, I had my college loans forgiven because I did not make enough income to pay them off. And so I could potentially get those back, which I cannot afford.
Are you still paying off the money that Felicity Huffman spent to get you into college in the first place?
God.
That's really
Don't
the part
I
that needs to be
wish
forgiven.
that I had Lori Loughlin money.
To be fair, we all wish we had Lori Loughlin
do.
money. So there are, of course, just a lot. I don't know, $4.7 trillion. That was what I was just talking about before. It gets into that level. Like I can't even grasp the concept of that much money and what it will do.
So I think that we should, instead of talking about the amount of money, we should be talking about the percentage of the money that we want to spend on certain things, because I think the percentage is something that we can better understand and better grasp. What percentage of the discretionary income or money that we have do we want to spend on education and homelessness issues and science, and therefore forget about 4 point anything trillion. It's just we just cannot. But that's exactly how I encourage people to manage their own budget, is to set up by percentage rather than just the dollar amount, because then that gives you a sense of what your values are. And I think that a conversation about budgets needs to begin with what are our values as a country, what is important to us. And it's really sad that when you look at it, we can say, okay, well, clearly education is not important to us. And basically anything that has doesn't have to do with the military is just not that important. It's an afterthought. And I am a bit embarrassed to live in a country whose values are represented in the budget and having the budget that we do. I think that if more Americans thought about it this way, and that your budget represents your values, I think more Americans would be uncomfortable with it too, and also cringe. I don't know if they'd use the word embarrassment like I just did, but they would be uncomfortable with it, and I believe would seek to change it. But when we're just told numbers, 4.7 for this and $1 billion for that, we just cannot be any critical part of the conversation, because we just have no bearings from which to or context from which to give a healthy analysis.
But the upside is that the plan calls for $2.7 trillion in cuts. I mean, that's very exciting. I mean, the Environmental Protection Agency, where's the information on that being something that's important to any of us, especially our future? Department of Education, I don't know, we're all out of school, that's fine. And the State Department, I don't know, our state doesn't have any money, so who cares? But obviously these are they don't really fit into a campaign promise. Now, let's not only hold President Trump to his campaign promises. No one follows through on their campaign promises, but he said that he was going to eliminate the national debt while he's in office. So maybe he's counting on 2 terms, but this current budget proposal, and again, this is when we're talking about crazy numbers of money, but these projections have the national debt ballooning to $31 trillion in 10 years. What do you do at that point? Do you just switch to a new currency, and then you just be like, all right, well, we're not going to use dollars anymore?
We're going to do what most people do. We're going to go with the 0% APR balance transfer that will last us 12 to 18 months.
That's a great idea.
And we're going to hope to pray that we're going to get it paid off by then, but then we're not actually going to be able to, so the interest is going to be even higher than we started. And then during that year to 18 months, we're going to spend more money. So it's not going to turn out well unless we first individually get a hold of our personal finances and then use those skills to carry over into our political discourse.
Scott, for years it was considered basically the third rail of politics to do anything with entitlement programs, especially Medicare, Social Security. But this budget looks to reduce Medicare spending over the next 10 years, so it's a long time, but $845 billion. What do you think it would take for, an organization who basically sends propaganda into the house of retirees like the AARP to be like, oh no, wait a minute, this is not what we want, and because I feel like that is how you maybe reach that group of people. It's like, just so you know, this is what's going to happen over the next 10 years.
Right. I do think again that is something that is not going to happen once Congress actually.
But I mean, just the fact that this is what he's calling for.
Yeah, which of course he kept claiming he would never touch that, and through all these years. And also the other thing about his budget, which is very frustrating, is he has the economy a lot stronger in this budget, even with the trillions in in deficits. He's assuming it was like 3.9% GDP growth this year, followed by another 3% next year and the year after, and it's never hit 3% for the full year. Again, he claimed that after the tax scam that it was going to be well over 3, maybe even 4%, maybe 6%, and it never hit 3% last year.
It's exactly the same thing that individuals do, is they overestimate their income. They're like, oh, I'm going to get a raise, I'm going to get promotion, I'm going to have this side gig that brings them this much, or they forget to think about what's going to be taken out of taxes from their salary already. I mean, this is just a really nasty reflection of what we're all doing on an individual basis.
And it is really terrible because the fact that they're making assumptions on an economy that hasn't even hit that at this point, and hoping that it will, and hoping that that's going to tamp down some of these trillions in debt, and then they have a 15-year balanced budget deal, which will never happen either. And again, just kicking the can down the road, like you're talking about, when people are spending on credit cards and other things. That's what we're doing as a country, and we just keep using that credit card and going deeper and deeper in debt and not being able to pay it off. And it's just going back to that embarrassment. It's just embarrassing to see that you put a budget together like that under really false assumptions.
But we're seeing that the reason that we're willing to do this is because we think it's good for the economy to be spending this much. And it has this cycle of we give more money to the military, which is something that is proposed in Trump's budget, and military spending goes up, and then shares of Boeing and all that stuff go up. So it gives this idea that it stimulates the economy, and so then we think that stimulated economy is going to make up for the money that we're spending, but it never catches up. It is based on fantasy.
Right.
And we'll see how long it takes
And
for
if
us to
anything,
wake up.
wouldn't you think that we'd rather pay off, like clear and forgive student loan debt so that people could get ahead and actually have money to make savings and be able to buy houses and be able to buy new cars and be able to buy products and services they might not be able to because they're paying student loan debt every month. And that was a thing. Like it wasn't even just yours that you were mentioning. It was also the public service student loans, which actually was enacted during the Bush administration. And they're talking about getting
41
rid
and
of that.
43.
43, and they're talking about getting
Just
rid
wanted
of
to
that.
know.
Yeah, Bush too. And they're talking about getting rid of that and wiping that forgiveness out, which affects all those public servants you think about, like firefighters, EMTs, police officers, the same blue-collar type of people that Trump claims that he wants to take care of, yet they would wipe that out in the education budget too, which is incredibly unfair for those hardworking people as well, which is a very high standard. You still have to pay off in full every month for 10 years before that's even forgiven. So it's not like they're getting a free ride or whatever that anyone could say that. So again, it's things like that, and again, focusing on the military budget, which is already the biggest in the planet several times over, and continuing to increase it without
Bigger
taking
than
care
the
of
next 10 countries combined.
and continue to increase that. And like you said, you're not seeing any of that. The trickle down theory, as we know, doesn't work, and it's not going to work again. So.
Yeah, but I mean, clearly we're safer than those next 10 countries. I mean, the fact of the matter is
that's a
that
very
President Trump has called for an increase in military spending by 5% from $716 billion to $750 billion. And I don't know about you, Tamara, but I actually feel 5% safer than I did about a month ago.
We're constantly under threat.
Yeah.
Be afraid.
Look,
Be afraid. We
forget-
need to invest in the military.
Forgiving college loans and forgiving debt is great, but is it going to keep murderers from crossing into our borders? I doubt it, unless they also went to one of our
We
colleges.
need a space force to protect us from above. We need a wall to protect us from the south. We need more barriers, more guns.
By the way, I would rather spend the money, if we're talking about, additional 8.6 billion, I would rather spend it on Space Force than on a wall. Like, I don't know what that accomplishes for Space Force, but I don't know. I would go and see a Space Force movie, but I don't want to see a movie about the wall. That's just me. Anyway, that's a lot of money being spent, and basically the Democrats don't like this. So that's because they don't like America. Clearly, is what that. I mean, thank you. That's basically what it comes down to.
Just in case people tuned in and thought all of us were on the
No,
left.
I mean clearly, yeah. I mean, they're gonna try to block the efforts. They're really focused on the $8.6 billion to build the wall. But when you consider just how much else there is in there, but that's the signature thing to go, because that's the thing that's going to bother him the most. That's the thing he promised. But I don't know, Chelsea. I mean, if he doesn't get to build the wall, isn't that better for him campaigning next year? That it's like, look how hard I tried to build that wall. I wanted you people to have that wall. Democrats don't want to keep you safe. Bernie doesn't want to keep you safe. I don't know. Actually, maybe he doesn't. No, but I mean, that's a very easy argument to make now if he doesn't get it.
I don't doubt that he'll make any idiotic argument, and the sad fact is that no matter what idiotic argument he makes, some people will follow it, and I cannot concern myself too much with them. I can be concerned about them and loving towards them and respectful, but I'm just not going to plan around, like strategize what should we do because people are going to believe that. I think he's going to say what he's going to say, and then we just have to put one foot in front of the other in the hopefully more correct direction.
That kind of sounds like you don't think that the Democrat needs to campaign in Wisconsin. Is that what you're saying?
You're saying all of Wisconsin believes his stories?
No, I mean, it's just saying, it's like, oh, let's just not worry about the people. I mean, that's what Hillary did. She didn't care about Wisconsin.
No, I didn't say ignore entire states.
Oh, okay.
I say ignore the people who, no matter what he says, are going to believe him.
Right, and that's, I guess the idea is that that's going to be somewhere around half. I guess you want to try and keep it to like 40% as opposed to 49.777 with a line over the 7.
Because those voters who really are essentially single issue voters on this wall are just non-movable, and I think that there's enough rest of the population who care more than just about the wall that are enough for Democrats to pull votes from.
Tamara, I usually give you the joke question, but I had the thought from Chelsea. If you were a single issue voter, like, what do you think is if you had to, you can only pick one, what do you think is like, all right, this is the most important thing for that candidate? And for yourself, yes, but also thinking in terms of mass appeal throughout the 50 states.
If she's the Democrat?
Yeah, that's what I'm. Well, yeah, but I mean, it's what's important to you, but also, you know, maybe it's the number one on your list. You're like, okay, but that might not be the one most important to everyone.
Who looks best in a bikini, I guess.
I mean, I would say Mitch McConnell. I just have a hunch. Call it, you know,
that turtle shell really fills it out nicely.
Yeah.
Who can belt out, you know, Meatloaf at karaoke the best? That's my single issue.
If Trent Lott was still around, that would be my vote. But it's, yeah, I don't know. Actually, that's a great question.
I don't think anybody who is actually paying attention to policy is a single issue voter.
What do you think, Scott? Do you think that there is a single issue that is the one that people are going to respond to the most? On the left, is it going to be something like women's choice, or?
I think healthcare.
I asked Scott. I didn't ask you, Chelsea.
For me personally, I think it's healthcare, but I think that's going to be a big one too, and exactly how we can lay out a future with providing healthcare that's accessible for as many people as possible. As
healthcare has gotten more difficult to actually get a hold of over the last couple of years. Chelsea, I'm sorry, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh my God, I was just like, okay. Worrying about healthcare is great, but I think the number one issue needs to be corruption, cleaning up the corruption in all the different forms. Because without that, how can we clean up the corruption that exists in the healthcare lobby to then fix healthcare? So if Democrats can just rally against, we're cleaning up the corruption, we're fighting for our democracy, much of what was contained in the resolution in HR1.
Trump ran on, though.
He talked about draining the swamp.
Yeah,
but that was the saying. But what was included in the vote from last week that the House passed, HR1, that about voting and about moving to overturn Citizens United. I mean, it's not completely perfect, but it is a step in the right direction to cleaning up corruption. And by that, I mean the undue influence of big money in politics. That needs to be the number one issue.
That's boring.
That's the thing.
That's exciting.
Well, I'm just thinking as far as
but even that's not possible without cleaning up corruption.
I'm just saying motivating people to vote. I don't know if that's going to be the one to turn people out. That's the.
Really?
I mean, no, I agree.
No, I would say from a practical standpoint, yes. But for something that's going to drive people to vote, it's like, let's fight the corruption.
It's jobs, it's healthcare.
You don't get excited about fighting corruption
when it's not affecting them personally. That's the thing.
That is really fascinating.
Here's why. All right, so if you're an anti-corruption candidate and I'm a very corrupt candidate, you can make your point and I'll be like, yeah, hey, who wants a bunch of money? I've got it. Can I give it to you? Here you go. Vote for me.
I like this guy.
I just won our election, and Scott voted present, so I won on one vote. But look, I certainly agree that it's a huge problem, and so many things stem from it. It is a very difficult thing to sort of build around as a cornerstone.
Why?
And President Trump didn't win on just draining the swamp. He ran on the wall. And then also draining the swamp, so that I guess you could build the wall on the swamp. I don't know why.
Out of the swamp.
Why did I just? Why did I only come up with that now? We should have built the wall on the swamp, and then everybody would have won. All right. Well, we can talk more about the budget, but those are the broad strokes. Let us know how you think we could balance the budget. You know, I mean, can we just have a $4.7 trillion tax? You know, there's a few guys who have that money, and I know women have it too, but let's just go ahead and take it from the guys who have it. That's fine. You know what? Let's be equal. We're going to take it from Jeff Bezos and his wife, who has half of his money now. So everybody wins. And that might solve it right there.
And Oprah.
No.
Don't take any of Oprah's money while Chelsea's here.
Well, listen,
Oprah worked really hard for that.
People on the right are going to say you can take all of the billionaires' money and it's still not going to add up to the money that we need. And so we can't just look to a couple of people to fix this. This has to be a systemic fix, a systemic resolution. And I don't just say to go after certain rich people.
Do you want to go after all the rich people, including Hillary Clinton? I mean, look at what she makes for a speaking engagement. Let's tax that.
Because rich is such a we haven't defined that.
Yeah. It's like pornography. You'll know it when you see it, and there's a lot of the Venn diagram kind of crosses over a lot between pornography and rich.
Right. So yes. Yes.
Robert Kraft proves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. If only we had time to talk about orchids of Asia. But instead, I
can't
wanted
believe we don't.
I mean,
Did you talk about it last week?
We didn't talk about it last week because the political ramifications of that weren't really out. That the woman who no longer runs it, but started Orchids of Asia, was apparently selling access to President Trump. Tamara, it's just a coincidence that she knows him, right? I can't see any. You can't draw a line between those two things that makes sense to me.
By the way, I just can't. I'm wondering how well orchids are selling right now. Are they just?
Was this a time to buy orchid stock?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now you say it.
Yeah, the orchid industrial complex
orchid
is going to be,
industry.
Hey,
blooming right now.
Big Orchid has been running our government for way too long, so I hope that. Well, what would you like to say about it? About the fact that I guess, can we call her a madam, even if she sold the? Look, it's a legitimate business.
I was just making a Robert Kraft joke.
No, I know,
I'm
but then
not trying
Chelsea
to
wanted to
sway the
talk about it.
conversation.
I mean, I think it's something certainly to talk about, and I mean that can be skipped over seems crazy. I mean, if this were the Obama administration and that story came up, we would talk nothing but about that. And
would you really talk nothing about it? About nothing other than that if it was the Obama administration?
I think if we had this show during that time, yes.
There's a fun idea. Let's do a flashback episode. Like for April Fools, we'll do an Obama report. Right. And the whole time I'll just be like, look, I can't think of anything until you show me his birth certificate. No, the real birth certificate. Yeah, I mean, look, here's the problem with that. Because there's a lot of question marks about, this woman. And if I could remember her name, I would say it. But I can't because I wasn't prepared to talk about it today. But I know the story. But there's just the access. It's not like they arrested, let's not even say President Trump. They didn't arrest Paul Manafort for getting a handy before a Patriots playoff game later that afternoon in Kansas City. They have very specific evidence against Mr. Kraft. They don't have evidence, of a political nature. Do you think they have it and we just haven't gotten it yet?
Are you saying evidence that this woman was involved in human trafficking?
No, I'm talking about tying government officials because that makes it that big of a story. I think that there's plenty of evidence of human trafficking.
Only if Trump specifically knew of this woman's business involving human trafficking would he have any level of liability.
No, I'm just saying instead of having the evidence against Robert Kraft, say it wasn't again not even President Trump. Just I don't know.
See, this is not a court of law. We as a society get to say those lines are awfully fuzzy and this relationship is a little too close and cozy for me to trust this person. We don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump knew that there was human trafficking going on from people that were giving to his campaign. We're not trying to throw him in jail over this. Would be nice, but that's not what we're trying to do.
Right, but I would also say that getting into that room that he's in, he very well has no idea who that woman is. I mean, it's not that much of a reach. If you think about how many people are granted access, thank you. Yes. Thank you, Beavis. I think about how I mean, think about how Rod Blagojevich was trying to sell Obama's Senate seat. Obama didn't know anything about that. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of people that have their hand in the pie. What do you think about that? There's a lot of people looking for a handout. But no, I mean, legitimately, yes, of course, there's there's questions about it, but is it possible that it's just somebody else?
Idea.
He has no idea who's in a room with him and who was selling access to that room. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. Do you think it's possible?
See, again, that fact that it's possible that he didn't know who these people were means that there is corruption easily going on that nobody is monitoring.
I mean, I think that's completely how the Russian collusion has gone. As long as somebody is supporting him and telling him that they're supporting him, he doesn't care what they're doing or who they're connected to or anything like that. I think he legitimately thinks that he has done nothing wrong because he doesn't he doesn't have the awareness to know what is legal and what is illegal.
Right. I mean, there's plausible deniability about everything, really, because it's like if something, say the Trump Tower meeting, it's like, I don't want to know anything about that. You start to talk about something, somebody else in the room is like, we'll talk about that later. So if you don't talk about things in front of the president, all he has to say is like, yeah, I had no idea that was going on. You just shouldn't lie about it, Nixon.
Okay, but when you're saying that he could not, know about it, and he could not know that it was wrong, because he doesn't know what's wrong. He has proven himself incapable of acknowledging if he's ever made a mistake, if he's ever been wrong. We have exhibit, 1002 from his inability to acknowledge that he made a mistake by calling Tim Cook Apple. He says it wasn't a mistake. He meant to do it in order to save words, because cook of, as in Tim Cook from Apple, is way too long and wastes too much time, and we know how important it is for him to be concise. He hates being verbose, and so that's all there was. For him
just look at that. Just to interject. Just look at the brevity of his speech at CPAC.
Yeah.
Obviously, he does not want to go on too long.
So
he doesn't want to use too many words.
Any man that is not capable of like, oh, that was a funny mistake, or just acknowledging,
Sure.
I messed up, is not even not capable of not knowing right from wrong, but just should not be trusted by anybody.
Yeah.
That's something that I personally look for in a person as I grow a relationship with them, is I'm looking for, are they able to call themselves out for any mistake? Even if it's like for traffic, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late, traffic, and that's their go-to every time, and they make no behavior modification for it, then I know that they're just blaming something external and are having no personal accountability for any of their actions. None of us are perfect. We make sense. I can call somebody by the wrong name if you can just acknowledge it, or even just don't lie about it. Just don't say anything about it and go on to make this really weird defense about it.
I think we're all in agreement. I mean, nobody's arguing.
No, but I should explain that. I can't believe you're sitting next to me after 3 years. The fact that I don't think I've ever admitted to any mistakes.
But I really want to know.
Because I haven't made any.
I really want to know from people
Thank you.
from people who believe President Trump. Does that not register with him, that he's not able to acknowledge any mistakes? I think that they would say those mistakes don't matter. What's important to me is something like the wall, because what they wouldn't say about the wall is that it makes them feel that they're safe from having to deal with people who look, sound, and live differently.
I think we spend too much time trying to analyze the psychology of why Trump supporters support Trump. I think it's a waste of our time. Let's just go.
Well, I mean, a waste of our time, but it's way
fundamentally
entertaining
they
for me.
supported him because he wasn't Hillary, and then it's just sort of grown because it's like everyone who says that they're smarter than you tells you why you shouldn't vote for him, and it just sort of makes him more endearing to a lot of those people.
And I would say a lot of people that are don't even necessarily love them that much are, like you said, are going to do the things they like. So they know, like, a Democratic candidate's not going to do that, but at least they know they're going to get their Supreme Court justices, they're going to get the anti-abortion, they're going to get the wall, they're going to get all the things that they think are important, so they'll overlook all of his many flaws to get what they want.
The pragmatic supporters like that are the minority. I think... Yeah. I'm contradicting myself now. I said, let's not waste our time talking about that. Here I am. But the majority are just the ones that are like, he says he loves America, I'm on board. That's all they need. He says he supports the military, I'm on board. It doesn't matter that everything he does completely contradicts that. It doesn't matter that everything he does completely contradicts my personal demographic and special interests. He says that he loves America. He says that he supports the troops. That's all I hear, and that's all I care about. That is his...
I mean, that's sort of the pragmatic side, too, is like, okay, I'm getting what I want out of it. And also, you just have the cult of personality with him, too, that people are just going to...
People are...
He says what's on his mind. He has no...
He has no filter? Yeah. No, look, he gives people things that are important to them. Amy Klobuchar is not going to give you Space Force. She will not give you Space Force. I guarantee now.
Amy Croissant.
Yeah, Amy Croissant.
No, guys, I cannot be on a show where that is the punchline. Come on.
Look, she decided to run for president with that name.
Wait, what did you even say? The pronunciation of her name overshadowed. I didn't even hear what you said.
But here's the thing. It's not the worst name running for president. Hickenlooper. Yeah, because we're going to have a president named Hickenlooper. I don't care about what he stands for. I don't care how great he does in a debate.
What did you
no
say about Amy Klobuchar? What did you say about her?
She's not
They
going to
voted for her
support
in Colorado.
She's
Guys.
not going to support Space Force. So that's why people aren't going to vote for her.
Let's not be like. I mean, I get the humor thing. I appreciate that, but like
Do you though? Do you get the humor?
sometimes.
Yeah,
But
that's
the
true.
Amy
There was one time I
Klobuchar
made you
thing
laugh.
is just
I
a
remember
little
that time I
much.
made you laugh.
The one time.
Scott, I specifically pulled this story because I wanted to start with you on this. Nancy Pelosi says that Trump is just not worth impeaching. Do you agree with that?
Well, taking it from what it is, I still think what she's referring to is what's going to come out with the Mueller report, what's going to happen, and that hasn't come out yet. And she did say that. She's like, unless there's some really big thing in there. And it's true. She doesn't want it to become focused on her caucus having to worry about running for election and re-election next year with that hanging over their heads, because that's an easy thing to turn against those moderates and people that are kind of on the line that might want to vote for Democrat but don't want to be caught up in the drama of impeachment. That said, it's also talking about our impeachment clock. We're starting to run out of that time, because by the time, if we start not getting the Mueller report soon and knowing what's in there, knowing maybe more of what he actually did, it is going to get so close to the election that it's going to be pointless to pursue that when people are running and having to defend that. So I think she's being pragmatic. Again, going back to that we were saying earlier, is that she's looking at the interest of what they're looking for in 2020 and what the voters are going to want, and to be focused on impeachment takes away from some of the other things they're going to want to do. That said, again, she left it open depending on what happens.
So-
I
didn't
agree
see
with her.
that.
I agree with her.
No,
So,
come on, guys.
so Tamara, what this means to me is that if you want to see Trump get impeached, he has to get reelected. So that's what everybody should be waiting for, is for him to get reelected so that he can be impeached in the second term.
So what Nancy Pelosi said is that impeaching Trump will divide America. And
Yeah.
I think what she's ultimately saying by that is when Bill Clinton got impeached, his approval rating among Democrats went up 10%.
Right.
His approval rating went up. 10% is a lot. So what she's saying is the base of the Republicans that have his approval rating has been going down. This is only going to help him to be impeached. I think that's what she's pointing to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like you're getting too close to the election that now you're pulling down your people of your caucus that are going to have to run on this one issue, which will be blasted by Republicans. And you're right. Then it makes him the martyr, which we're saying is
Yeah.
So that unless there's something really huge in there, which we still haven't seen that report to be able to,
Well-
there's so many other scandals going on that.
Well,
hard to
Chelsea,
narrow it down.
the fact that it wouldn't clear the Senate, is that maybe a reason not to do it, because you just know that you can impeach him if you want to, but you're not going to remove him as president. So it mostly it really only has a negative impact.
My issue with her saying this is not that she is wrong or doesn't have some logic to back up her point. I think she makes a fair point. I think that this is one of those times where she shouldn't have said anything about it at all. Like, let's not talk about impeachment. Let's talk about, corruption. Let's talk about other issues. What she said about impeaching, not impeachment makes sense, but we don't know if he does something tomorrow that now is like super impeachable worthy that both sides of the aisle are going to agree on. So she should have kind of just kept her mouth shut
But
about
she
this.
did say that, though, and she said that would be the thing. If something major came on, that it was a bipartisan thing, that therefore they would move forward with that. So she did make that claim, and that's why I said I do
that
understand
detail
it.
is buried way down there, and of course the headline is just Nancy Pelosi says no impeachment.
Right, because then Kevin McCarthy said, "Oh yeah."
But so I think that
agree with her.
she should have declined to comment on that and used that precious time to talk about something that really matters.
Tamara, do you think that President Trump, we always know how he characterizes everything. Do you think he would have the best impeachment? Would it be the best impeachable defenses that anybody, better than any impeachment ever?
Oh, that's tricky. Yeah, how would he spin that one?
He would just be like, well, look-
It would be the most unfair impeachment ever. It would be the most witch hunted, unfair
Presidential harassment.
presidential harassment. Yes.
I know you're friendly with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You should get those words all to her. I think that would help her in a statement. We only have a few minutes, but a story that I pulled just for Chelsea was that New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio has announced a meatless Monday for public schools in New York. Now, for me, I can see one reason why that makes sense, because New York is having a lot of budgetary issues. You would think it was in California. And to me, that seems like, whatever the cost of lunch, because, there's kids who get lunch provided for them by the state because otherwise they're not going to be able to have lunch. I feel like to do that one day a week is probably going to save, I don't know, thousands, $1 million.
Except that I saw that it's a cost-neutral endeavor.
It's a cost-neutral endeavor.
Yeah.
Well, so there goes my endorsement.
But I still think it's a good thing for the consciousness of these kids that they don't need meat to survive, that they can have good, delicious, healthy food that doesn't have meat. In fact, eating meat at every meal or even every day is unhealthy, and it's unhealthy for the planet. See, one of the biggest hurdles in overcoming healthcare is the ballooning costs of covering everything that could be handled if we all just ate better. So when people on the right ask, well, how are we going to pay for this Medicare for all? Part of my solution is that we stop the subsidies for meat, because then people will, in all likelihood, become healthier and the cost will come down because we're not going to have to pay so much for these diseases of lifestyle. So I think that goes nicely into that. And I read in that article that, if we all stopped eating meat, it would make, a very negligible difference in our impact on climate. And I just disagree with the numbers in there. That was like 2.6%.
Yeah,
I think it's a very, very high number, and perhaps they just did
I
not
stopped
use...
eating meat for environmental reasons last year.
But
I'm sorry, I was waiting for the joke part. I actually had no idea. I was just like, okay, what's this?
I still eat fish because I can't give up sushi.
Yeah, I do.
Also, fish are assholes. So come on,
sushi.
Let's be honest. Scott, you might be able to, implement a program like this in New York City, specifically localized in Brooklyn. I'm just making a joke, but it is localized in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Now you're from Florida. Mm-hmm. How do you think this would play throughout the state of Florida?
It would not play well.
You don't think?
Florida, no.
What if the tofu was covered in country gravy?
No, stop with the tofu.
I'm just picking a meat substitute.
It means
It's fine. The broccoli is covered in country gravy.
No.
Would that work in Florida?
No, but
Welcome to 2019, where we have Beyond Meat and Impossible Meat.
Really good. I ate fake meat when I was still eating meat. It's good.
And
it
the
is good. I like
Impossible
veggie
Meat,
burgers.
Impossible Food has the same healthy benefits of meat without the...
But doesn't it cost a lot more?
Currently, yes.
Yes.
But that's the
so you
truth
want to
of
subsidize
everything.
Beyond Meat, but not
Who
actual
said
meat.
anything about subsidizing?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're going to try and get it into schools, that's the only way that I can see. You're not going to say, like, spend more money.
We don't know that. We haven't talked to the Beyond people.
Well, the Beyond people, I'm pretty sure if you go to their website, it's probably not a .org.
Beyond people sounds like the new Illuminati. The Beyond people.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they do it in bulk, maybe they can bring the cost down. But I would say it wouldn't play well in Florida only because it'll be the whole I have the freedom to eat whatever, which goes back to our problem of fast food and sugars.
Then if you want to eat all the fat and sugar and unhealthy stuff that you want, then I do not want to help pay for your health care. Can we? How about that? You want the freedom to kill yourself with what you eat? I have the freedom to not have to pay for that. So I do agree with that, in that I don't want to be paying for everybody's health care. That is being really irresponsible with their with their health.
If you get that, then if I don't have to pay for abortions, and if we're going to go down that road of what...
Right, if you could check out on your tax returns what you don't want to
which
pay
I would
for.
love to do. I still wish I could. I'd love to say I'm not paying for the wall. I'm not paying for this.
Look,
I'm not paying.
I'm going to put all my money.
I'm pro-choice, by the way. I'm just saying.
We have to wrap, but I'm going to put all my money towards the border wall. But also, I'm going to give all my money to the Beyond people and the Lizard people. Thank
Lizard?
you. Yeah.
The Beyond
Well,
people.
that goes back to a few weeks ago.
Impossible.
Anyway.
There is another company called Finless Foods, which is going to be alternative fish. That would be interesting.
That would be very interesting. I heard, isn't there a vegan?
Yeah, but I
sushi
still hate
place
fish.
too?
Anyway, we are out of time.
Easy
Thanks for
tries.
everyone who was in the chat. It's great to have the whole gang back together. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And don't forget that the show is on Twitter, not Instagram, at Trump Report ABTV. Chelsea, where do people find you?
At Chelsea Galicia.
Tamara?
TamaraBrown.com.
Whoa! All right.
Website. Wow.
Scott?
You can find me on Twitter at sman80, probably writing something nasty to Mitch McConnell.
He's like a fish, all right. Thanks,
Don't
everybody.
insult fish.
He's a turtle.
Or turtles.
We will see you next week at 4 Pacific on Tuesday. Thanks, everyone.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.